Yeah, at the corona where everything takes place, that's where the inflow of the dipolars, the electrons, which are perturbations from space itself, are the charge carriers that are flowing in. Maybe I should explain the sun in a slightly different way. The sun is the great attractor, and everything else is imparting, giving off the vibrations that create the single dipolar electron, the charge carrier. Now, maybe I should diverge here and say that the Sapphire Project is what really got me to thinking about the dipolar nature, because you can see from the anode and the cathodes when they crank up the voltage and you get the double layers. Now, double layers are what the dipoles do when they stack side by side. And magnetics and electrics are both really the same thing, but you can see what a magnet does, and it helps to explain what electric does. Dipoles tend to align either side by side or end to end, and side by side is what they do around any body, the Earth, the Moon, a piece of floating meteorite, space junk, whatever. And they do so in a specific fashion. It's an ordered arrangement. You have rings. They form spheres around. And each sphere is double the last one. So the volume of the sphere is double. So they're arranged very specifically, very ordered. And these dipoles are around everything, absolutely everything, whether it's around an individual atom or it's around a planet. And around the planets, like Earth, for example, they create their different layers. You have around the Earth the ionosphere. Now they can break that up into the layers that they do, F1, F2, F3, and so on. And each layer is a different structure. Well, it's not a different structure. It's a larger structure outside of, and they each contain the same amount of force, but double the area as it goes out. Now, once they reach the level that is controlled by the amount of charge, static electrical charge that is on the body, then the other dipoles that are out beyond that tend to arrange themselves end to end. And the end to end is what joins on to other, it feels around, it looks for another body to join to. And it's all part of seeking its own level. This is what electrical force does. It has to seek its own level. When you look at the anode or the cathode, depending on whether it's the sun or it's a planet, the sun is a cathode because it is a positive ring that it has around it. So it's attracting all the negatives in. And at that convergence zone, at the corona, this is where matter creation happens, because the two come together at very high speed, very high and fast, and that crashing into one another is what creates the protons, the neutrons, the hydrogen atoms, which, and they fuse on up and up and up into all the elements. And this is done through the bombardment of each other. So there's a lot of energy given off each time it makes a stage up. And that energy given off is, of course, is what we feel as heat from the sun, the radiation from the sun, the alpha, the beta, the gamma. It's all created right there on the corona. Some of it falls down to the surface. Now, because of the great pressures, the hydrogen falls as a metallic hydrogen. Everything is compressed in. The protons, so to speak, and I don't like to use that term, but I know everybody understands that. The protons, when they're closer to the surface, can allow things like superconductivity. Superconductivity allows the electric charge to flow without resistance. And as these other elements, and these elements you can find are flowing out, they've been noticed in the spectrum of spectral analysis taken from what comes out from the sun. And you have everything coming out from there, all the way up through uranium and plutonium. All of the elements are always flowing out from the sun in these solar winds, in these solar clouds. Some of it rains down on the Earth, on other planets too at times. Now, the way that the sun goes into nova is when these elements are no longer being pushed off, they fall in. They fall in and they cover over the metallic hydrogen. And when they cover over the metallic hydrogen, it builds to a certain point, and then the metallic hydrogen itself has to revert to its natural state. So it can no longer keep its conduction band down, compressed low, right next to the valence, to the hydrogen atom itself. And that's when it explodes. And it's a hydrogen explosion. So it all explodes out. And this only happens, as Douglas Vogt has said, once every 12,068 years. And the reason that it happens is because of where we are in the universe. Now, I look at that a little bit differently. I call it the great years as the causal element in that happenstance. The sun itself has to be flowing along a Birkeland current. So it's following a filament around a greater mass, a greater order, maybe Sirius or Pleiades. I don't know exactly where, nobody does, where we're following. Why are we following the path that we're following around the universe? But it's called the Great Year because once every 25,920 years we make this circuit. And during that circuit, there's other cycles that fall in between. And the sun cycle that we know is the 11 to 11 and a half years. And then you get to the Gleisberg cycle that's like about 80 to 88 years. And this is where Douglas Vogt gets his 12,068 from, because it adds up to that particular configuration. Now, matter creation also happens in the planets, but it happens inside, not on the outside. It happens inside the planets. And on Earth they have created a thing called plate tectonics, and they call these, they know that the Earth is spreading at the ocean ridges in between the plates, and it's expanding outwards all the time. And they came up with this idea of subduction zones because to them, the Earth doesn't grow. It has to remain static. But that is wrong. It does grow. There are no subduction zones. And mountains are created simply because of the fact that it's growing. You can look at how everything, all the continents fit back together like a jigsaw puzzle. And from that, you can extrapolate that, it just gradually gets larger. Now, going to Douglas Vogt's theory of 12,068 years, and he's showing the differences in the height, the depth of the water that goes down at the beginning of the Ice Age. And all that ice goes onto the land. Well, it's the nova event from the sun that causes all that evaporation to put it all up in the atmosphere so it can come down and be that huge mass of ice and snow. And so that drops the level, and he's got it as an increasing or a decreasing amount of water on the planet as we go forward through these ages. But he's wrong on that point. What it is the Earth is expanding. So the lowered depth is because simply the Earth is larger, and the same amount of energy coming from the sun can only take that amount of water and put it up in the air. So I'm going to stop there for now. I'll have to continue.